welcome to the Silhouettes of Success podcast with your host, successful entrepreneur, broker, and business mentor, Amber Weitzer. Because success comes in all shapes, sizes, and styles, the Silhouettes of Success podcast is shining the light on industrious women with a collection of curated conversations of intentional inspiration designed to inspire your heart, ignite your mind, feed your soul, and gift you with actionable insights directly from inspirational, everyday women who've shown tenacity, grit, and grace, having taken on the challenges in their lives and business and won. Remarkable, down-to-earth, and relatable, Amber and her guests will share with you uplifting and extraordinary real-life success stories, motivational ideas that just might help spark something within you. With the deepest desire to serve you, help you grow so you can begin to shine the light that will illuminate your very own silhouette of success. So, let's get to it.
Hello, and welcome to the Amber Weitzer podcast, Silhouettes of Success. Our Silhouette of Success VIP featured guest is another rock star woman who is here to share her story. Today, it's a treat to visit with an innovative, translucently light spirit and creative woman sharing her skills, talents, and techniques with us. She radiates with an artistic, vibrant light. So please help me welcome Devon Stonebrook, artist. Hello, Devon.
Hi, thank you so much, Amber.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us. I am so excited to visit with you and share your Silhouette of Success story. So once again, welcome.
Thanks.
Okay, so Devon, to help illustrate your Silhouette of Success with everyone, I'd like to share how we connected. May I?
Of course.
Fantastic. All right, so picture it. I was at a Michael's craft store in the checkout line and drawn to all those fun impulse items in the magazines they have. And there was a magazine titled What Women Create, and it was the June through March of 2020 publication. And so I was skimming through it and I saw an article, and what caught my eye was this sophisticated woman. She was wearing this white kimono-like apron and her hair was pulled up, and the studio was stunning, the photography, but the textiles. And immediately, of course, I was drawn to something that I adore, and it was the acrylic. So, I went through the magazine, and then the very first thing that really caught my attention beyond the beautiful artistic layout and just the stunningness of the feature, two things really, is based in Austin, Texas. However, from Michigan originally. I thought, oh my gosh, there's a tie. So I purchased the magazine, got home, was going through it, and love that, of course, it was published or founded by a woman, Jo Packman, the publisher. But then I reached out to you because on top of all of the things that really brought me to that magazine and allured me, you, once I opened it, I was also on a mission for the Ladder Alliance in Fort Worth. We were doing handbag donations, and I couldn't help it. I thought, okay, there's too many common threads, no pun intended. I have to connect with her. I have to reach out. So there we are, fast forward, and here we are together, and just following you throughout the last couple of months has just been so amazing. So it truly is an honor to visit with you, and I'm so excited. So it is all about you today. So we are ready to share your story. So ta-da.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. I mean, it was just, you know what? There's too many connections. And so how do you can't ignore things like that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Devon, talk to us. It's my understanding that you come from a background in architecture. So tell us more.
Sure. So like you mentioned, I'm from Michigan, and I went to school at the University of Michigan, and they have a really unique architecture program. So I would say that program is a little more experimental or theoretical and a little less technical. So studio culture was always about kind of big ideas, like making interesting models, maybe something that couldn't actually be built, but it was very much about the creative process. So when I was in architecture school, we used laser cutters to make building models. So imagine kind of small structures made out of sometimes acrylic, sometimes like chipboard paper. And when I was in school, we had a lot of creative freedom to make things that were not entirely architectural. So usually the projects I'd pursue were a lot of ways more about fashion than architecture, just because I thought that was more interesting. So what I ended up doing is in my free time at the studio and school, I was actually experimenting with handbag design. So using the laser cutters to make acrylic handbags. And it was purely just because it was something I was interested in. And I thought the laser cutters were such a unique tool. So, how the laser cutters work are you get to design everything on the computer. And then the laser cutters will cut really specific shapes, exactly how you design them on the computer. So it just allowed for a lot of potential as far as quickly being able to think of an idea and then bring it to physical reality. So that is kind of how my background in architecture transitioned to my career in handbag design.
It is such a cool concept. So unique, so unique. So who inspires you or who influenced maybe your style the most when you started creating? Because your bags are beyond stunning. They are art pieces. In fact, the concrete wallet, I was finally able to show the committee the other day. The concept, when I tried to explain it, didn't do it justice. I shared your picture, didn't do it justice. But when they were able to put it in their hand, I mean, it was just like Christmas, right?
Aw.
Everybody was just kind of looking at it. So where does your style influence come from?
So there's kind of two ends of the spectrum. I come from a family where my grandpa was actually a really talented leather craftsman. So he served in the Korean War, I believe, and he was in charge of like repairing planes. And in his spare time, he actually made money like tooling leather belts and making leather handbags or sometimes saddles, things of that nature. So I say my style is influenced by that part of my family because they were all more do it yourself, sewers, makers, those sorts of craftspeople. So I always value things that are a bit more handmade. And whenever I'd see something like at the store, I would be more inclined to think about ways that I could make it myself. On the opposite end of the spectrum, the designer Iris Van Herpen was someone who I always looked up to during school. I still look up to now. She makes really, really creative, beautifully crafted, like avant garde fashion pieces. And what sets her apart from most other designers is she was quick to embrace different means of fabrication. So she was one of the first designers to experiment with like 3D prints in fashion, in some instances, laser cutting. And really, her designs are a bit more otherworldly. So I guess I appreciate the novelty and the attention to detail and craftsmanship in her work.
That's beautiful. And to go back and pull in both maybe the legacy and the, what you truly value from your roots, in addition to what dazzles you in the current, and you've brought those things together. It's amazing. So, how did you hone in on your target customer or define your niche for your handbag? What was that path or journey like for you to identify how you wanted to bring your products to the market?
Quite frankly, it's something that continues to evolve. I'd say I'm definitely more of a designer than a salesperson. So for me, it was the first step was really just, I really want to figure out a way to be able to make these things. And the sales will hopefully follow when I feel like I've developed something that I'm confident enough in to be able to sell into market. So, fortunately, one of the things that's allowed me to pursue this career is having another job, a steady, stable income job at a laser cutting studio. And quite frankly, that surrounds me with enough people in Austin, sometimes architects, sometimes just a wide variety of people. That's enabled me to get more feedback on my work and introduce me to like larger markets of potential customers. So that's been really helpful. Yeah, I mean, with COVID and kind of everything shifting as much as it is, it's a little hard to have a lot of optimism about making pretty expensive luxury items. So I think, kind of like all things, I just need to be a little bit more open and see what a customer in, let's say, like 2021 looks like versus a customer in 2019 looks like.
Well, you are so right. And, I would like to give you a compliment. I think you're doing amazing.
Oh, thanks.
And, it's always sure there's the eye candy of seeing what you do and how you do it with that admiration, of course, because it is something so special and it does show. But I enjoy watching you on your social media and, whatever you're doing. So I agree with you, that quality customer that does appreciate that handcrafted heart and soul into it, she's out there. And I know that you're just going to continue to grow. So something you also mentioned was a question I wanted to ask you is, as a female independent business owner, how do you find that support? And I think you touched on that with your group that you're surrounded by, but talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so speaking of like female business supports, my job at Make ATX, it is a job completely surrounded by talented women. So the two owners, Kristen and Eve, they met after architecture school. And aside from me, they employ about four other people, all of whom are women and all of whom come from some sort of art background and are pursuing their own independent artistic career on the side. So it's really nice just to be surrounded by, I want to say, like-minded people, in the sense of we all kind of have similar values and everyone's supportive of each person's unique interest, but also like seeing my coworkers take on new projects and kind of what they do to push themselves, either from a career point or just from like a mental health creativity point. It's nice to see women so close in my sphere who are really just kind of taking all the right steps, and it's nice to have that sort of camaraderie around me.
That is a luxury, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, it's not like they are preventing men from working at this business. The most talented people just have ended up being women. And it's, like you said, it's definitely a kind of unique situation to be in.
Yeah, that's great. So with that too, something you mentioned is watching everybody and supporting and collaborating with their different projects, with their goals, things like that. So it sounds like you might, if you ever had, but tell us, do you ever get into a creative slump? How do you get back on track? And do you have support there, or do you maybe find other ways to help inspire yourself? How do you get through something, a hiccup like that?
Definitely. Well, I'll kind of give an example. I mean, when the pandemic hit, I'd say creativity was probably the last thing on people's minds, and it felt for sure like a slump, just being a little bit frozen. In some ways, panic and just really not knowing what a helpful thing to do would be in that time. So it was actually one of my coworkers. Her name is Sam, and she was so quick to start making masks for other people. A lot of family that she had lived in Detroit, and they were experiencing a really tough go of it. So she more or less immediately started sewing masks and sending them to family members and other people in the area. And I should point out too that like Sam is not by nature a sewer. She actually does a lot of murals and graphic art. So I think just kind of seeing her kind of so quickly and confidently moving in the right direction, that just really propelled me to start making masks, because again, like at that point, creativity was maybe the last thing on my mind, but purpose was something that I was kind of more searching for. she was really helpful to kind of ignite that fire in myself. When I am in a bit of a creative rut, a lot of times just doing really simple things like looking through books like art or other kind of fashion projects, usually that starts getting my head spinning in a positive direction. That's usually supplemented by going on a run or just being active in a way that kind of gets my mind thinking a bit more openly about projects. Usually that's the best way for myself to kind of stimulate creativity.
It's amazing what we can do out of the need, like you mentioned, purpose, and what maybe we don't think is in us, but it naturally comes out whenever there's a time of need or need to give. So that purpose is in there. And that's amazing to share that story. So in addition to the recent, of course, events of the world with the pandemic, was there ever a specific point in time of your journey, a key situation in your professional life or your artistic journey with the handbags, that you had to face another monumental shift in your business or career? What was the result? And whether it's positive or painful, how did it help you grow?
Yeah, I think one of the things I've kind of run into several times has been like balancing a desire to pursue retail opportunities with like wholesalers compared to a desire to think that's just not really a plausible path for doing something that's as kind of labor intensive and a little more non-traditional steps of designs that I take. So things like concrete handbags are a little bit harder to try to get on like a retail shelf at like a department store. But I will say that I had a really unique opportunity a couple years ago. I went to Dallas, Texas for the first time, and I was hoping to pursue more retail opportunities. And I had never been in a city before, and I thought my best shot was literally just going into different stores, wearing a handbag, and seeing if I could talk to someone or get a business card. And more than anything, just getting to experience those places in person to see what the store was like, what the customers were like, and if it seemed like it might be a good fit worth pursuing. So in a very small world scenario, I ended up walking into a department store called Stanley Korshak. And almost immediately, I was just in front of kind of the right person at the right time. The woman who happened to be in charge of like their handbag purchasing commented on my handbag. And long story short, that led me to have a small show at their store and an opportunity to display my bags to the public for the first time. So that was a really big shift for my business because it really made me, in a short period of time, kind of transition my business model into something that would be more retail friendly. And it ended up being such a great opportunity, but at the same time, it also kind of opened my eyes to maybe a little bit more of the difficulty in pursuing like wholesale relationships with like the sorts of designs that I make. So even though that ended up being a really great experience, it also maybe hardened me a little bit into pursuing more like custom couture work that would be maybe a little bit more far and few between. But in many ways, that sort of design process works a lot better with my particular like abilities to make things to order. And, the fact that I'm the only one assembling these bags, so large volumes really just aren't a feasible option.
That sounded like a complete movie that you just.
Oh, it felt like it.
I was with you, girl. I was in the store and I pictured you just getting the courage up and you're in the big city. I mean, that was phenomenal. What a great story, but how brave of you. How brave of you. And it is about timing. I believe in that timing, which is how I found you. But what an amazing experience and profound what you discovered in that opportunity for yourself and how you wanted to maintain maybe your vision and the integrity of the bags. But again, with all the logistics probably that would encompass pursuing that other opportunity or that other pathway for your bags.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
felt like a movie for sure, just because I did have I guess a little bit of like naive confidence going into that situation. Yeah, I never expected something like that to actually happen. And I have to say that even though that was such like unique event that I got to be part of, like all the other stores I went in before then, like the salespeople wouldn't even look at me. So it for sure was an uncommon thing that I got to experience there.
Wow. Well, that is, again, I'm just picturing you. I'm still in your movie here. It's amazing. When was that?
So that was, I want to say, close to 2 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was one of those unique things because I kind of thought, man, this is my big break, like things are really going to change from here. And it was most definitely helpful. And it did give me a lot more confidence in my work and just thinking that, okay, like my bags are good enough to be in a store like this. But it didn't translate into the overwhelming growth like most people would think that would lead to. So it was, in a lot of ways, it was just kind of more stable of a transition into refining my processes a bit more and then looking for a similar client base, but through other means. So it was for sure a cool experience.
Wow, that's classic. That is so cool. Well, tell us a little bit more about the textiles, or what's your favorite, or what do you enjoy working with most? Because again, the integrity that you put, the love and care, the quality, and just the pop and dazzle factor of these bags. They're just phenomenal. They just are. I think they're above and beyond any of the retail stores. So I know you are going to reach the stars and moon and beyond. I have no doubt in that, especially with you being behind your bags and all of I read about, your grandmother and your mother and, all of those things. You can't fight that success when you put all of that into it. So I know your time is there. But what do you enjoy working with most? Do you have a favorite?
Well, so like you, acrylic is just one of those materials that gets me excited. So I just love the glossy texture of it. And again, since it's a material that you don't see too often in stores, there's so much like variety in the sorts of colors you can work with. It just always feels exciting to me. But that said, it's like when I first started making handbags in architecture school, acrylic was more or less the only material I was using. And those bags, while they were kind of definitely unique, in retrospect, they were like so clunky and bulky and almost looked like kids' toys. So, in that sense, really getting into the leather work and developing more expertise in leather craft, that's really been the material that's taken my designs to a much more functional quality level. So I'd say leather in a lot of ways feels like it holds the most potential just because there's so many different things you can do with leather, and it's still more or less like a new material in my toolkit where I feel like there's a lot more potential for me to grow my skills there.
Beautiful. And I love the colors that you use. So I didn't know that you could actually custom order. You had options on your Instagram. So that was really cool. I started going through that. I think my eyes and my vision just stopped when I see your marketing material. I think, oh, well, that's good right there. That's just good enough. I'll take all of them. And then you see that you can actually custom order. So that's great for everybody to know that. I also, in doing a little research, heard that you studied in Paris. So do tell.
Oh, I did. It was a pretty phenomenal experience. So that was architecture program and it was my junior year of school. And it was with like the professor that I had like loved the most. So everything was a bit like picturesque as far as I couldn't imagine a program I'd be more interested in. Ironically, though, this might be a little off the cuff, but at that time in college, I was actually dealing with a bit of a depression that was totally new to me. And I think the thing that really triggered that depression was just being a bit overwhelmed with the studio culture. And there was just like that program is intense enough where it's expected you don't really sleep much. You're always kind of expected to be making things. It's pretty competitive. And at that point, I think it was just becoming a little bit too much for me. So, ironically, my trip to Paris, which again was like the best thing I could imagine for myself, it coincided with a time of depression. So, in that sense, I was surrounded by the most beautiful places, really great people, but internally, I felt like I had to work so hard just to feel somewhat normal and feel like I was like actually learning and actually being able to just like get by with the most basic things. So that whole trip feels a bit like a time capsule because I felt like I had to work so much harder just to pay attention and really try harder. Where I feel like in retrospect, I absorbed so much more out of that. And actually, so one of a kind of a transformational thing I did on that trip was I got to go to the Yves Saint Laurent exhibition, which was so awesome. And that was the first trip that I decided to pursue completely on my own. So I did not speak French. I wasn't super confident in navigating around the city, but I told myself, I really want to go see this exhibition. I'm going to do it on my own. And just like the act of doing that just felt like such a big step for me. And when I like got to the exhibition and was able to see like the beautiful archival display of all his designs, I mean, I felt it was pretty emotional and like pretty just beautiful and awestruck. And that was one of those events that really gave me enough confidence and conviction to pursue a career in fashion. Yeah, it was for sure a unique experience.
You're taking my breath away with your because again you're such a great storyteller and visual because I'm now walking through this journey with you. So thank you for sharing your vulnerable truths, because of course I didn't know that right until we spoke. And I hear in your stories, whether it was going to the big city of Dallas or in Paris and doing these things, how absolutely fearless you are. And sometimes of course we don't know what we might have within us, but for you to share that story and how you were feeling, that's amazing. And it's just fantastic what you were able to look back and pull from that and apply it to now and what you need to do in the future. I mean, you just got an inner fearlessness about you.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, wow, I'm just overwhelmed with that personally, because there's so many things that, you can read on paper, you can look, and it's just amazing and all these great things. But then there's also the times where, we go through those parts that are just a little tender on the heart. But you combined that and all of your experiences from what you shared with just this courageousness that you came out and you were able to see clearly later, probably much later, but what the benefits are and how you were able to apply that. So I'm just overjoyed in hearing your story. So thank you for sharing that. That was pretty personal, and I appreciate that.
Sure.
Because so many of us, out there go through those things. And unless we are able to share that with others, then we pull in and we feel like we have that collective environment that, you're in right now, supportive. So virtually supporting each other.
Yes.
Yeah. So what's next for you?
That feels like a very, I feel like I have a super unclear answer for that just because there's so many unique scenarios that we're in at the moment. But, with my business, I feel like I've typically had more time as a resource as opposed to money as a resource. And I've usually tried to use that to my advantage of like building new skills rather than investing in new things. So I think I'm going to try to keep a pretty open mind to whatever happens in 2020, but I'll probably do a bit more to just kind of build my skill set. And whether that will mean that I'm doing more designs, for other people, or focusing a bit more on like my photography or digital skills for other people's projects. I think that's something that I just need to be a little bit more open to.
Well, that's great. And talking about skills and investing in yourself, do you have a favorite author or anybody that inspires you that you'd want to share?
So I do have a favorite book. So the author's name is Sharon Loudon, and she's got several books, but the one I really connected with, it's called Living and Sustaining a Creative Life. So that's a really unique book because it's short essays of about 40 different artists. I'd say all the artists are extremely successful, but not success in the traditional way that things are presented. So they're not in the MoMA or huge galleries like that. The nice thing about that book is it's a very stripped down, kind of raw synopsis of what their day-to-day life looks like. So for a lot of them, they graduated from art school and were hoping to continue a career in art and realized that it's actually really hard to make money and find quick success doing that sort of thing. So a lot of those artists have had to take on other careers. Like sometimes it's kind of odd jobs, like becoming a plumber or just being open to other ways to make an income so that they can continue to pursue their work. And a lot of times that leads to new things like small gallery shows. And sometimes it leads to kind of more dry spells financially, but it was just a very kind of calm way of understanding like what success for an artist looks like in a much more normal expression of the word artist. So that's the book that I would recommend to people if they're at all curious about pursuing an artistic career.
That sounds exciting. So I wrote that down, of course, because I think success, and that's again why I'm here, is with all of you wonderful ladies, is the silhouette of success is going to look different for everybody. Whatever your successes are, they're defined by you and your goals and dreams. And that makes them artistic for everybody because they're different for everybody. There's not one the same. So it's so amazing. So Devon, as we wrap up this incredible, awe-inspiring visit with you, do you have, in keeping my promise to our listeners and audience, any intentional inspiration and maybe a key go-to piece of advice that you hold dear to your heart or that you would want to share?
I would say, especially with everything going on right now, just to keep an open mind and to listen to yourself and figure out like what brings joy in you. So if you're trying to pursue something new, just make sure that whatever you're pursuing, you're giving enough space to yourself to find joy, whether that's in your career or that's in your hobbies. Just make sure you carve out enough space for yourself that you're able to experience what makes you happy.
Love that. Love that. Thank you. So, Devon, where can everybody go to find you on your socials or support you in your continued growth and success?
So I do have an Instagram account. My handle is Pascal_new. Outside of that, if you're ever curious, I'm actually like big into emails. So when you go onto my website, it's pascalnew.com. just feel free to look around. And if you have questions about anything, even if you're not inclined to buy something, just feel free to send me an email. And I always love to hear feedback or new ideas.
Perfect. And of course, we'll post those too, so everybody can just log on and find you easily. Devon, thank you once again for sharing your silhouette of success with us. You are a true inspiration.
Well, thank you, Amber. It's been really nice talking with you.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Silhouettes of Success podcast. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you subscribe so you automatically get new episodes, and we'd love if you left us a review. We love to keep you in the ripple of support flowing and encourage you to pass on the light to help illuminate another's silhouette of success. So, please share this podcast on all your socials. Amber would love to hear from you, and you can find her on Facebook, LinkedIn, or head over to amberweitzer.com to reach out. To find out the latest ways to inspire your heart, ignite your mind, and gain actionable insights, subscribe at amberweitzer.com. The Silhouettes of Success is for those women who want to illuminate their success in life and business and pass it on to support others. We are honored and humbled that you've tuned in.